Ibra di testa, Tonali, gol! Sandro! Meritato! Sandro!
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the SempreMilan podcast. I'm your host Ollie Fisher, joined once again by Anthony Torgrud.
What's up, guys? Glad to be back. We've replaced Madison for the week with Stefano.
That was a weird way to bring me in. Well, pleasure to be back. I've changed my name to Pioli because rather than crapping on him, let's give him some praise.
I didn't even notice that. I'm
You
not
didn't
going to lie.
Yeah, anyway, pleasure to be back and obviously talking about some good results, especially a win. But yeah, lots to go over this week.
Yeah, Maddie has been replaced for a second week as well. I thought I'd point that out, but I'm sure he'll be back. I'm sure he'll be back again soon. As Stefano mentions, we've got some more positivity. Everything seems to be, going back our way now after a very difficult month of January. We've literally just got one game to recap and one game to preview, and it feels like a while since it's been that quiet. February has been a pretty intense month, as it has been throughout the whole of 2023. But we'll just dive straight into the game that we saw last night against Atalanta at San Siro. I think if you look at our winning run so far, the 3-game winning run that it was coming into this game, we'd beaten Torino 1-0 in what was an unconvincing performance, but it was an important victory to kind of stop the rot and a solid defensive display generally. And then the win against Spurs was one of those sort of European nights where we felt anything could happen, but the team put in a mature performance. They stopped the influence of Harry Kane. They got the goal early on, and it means that we take a lead back to London. That was a step forward from the Torino game. Then the Monza game was a 1-0 win, but it was an unconvincing performance. It wouldn't have been massively unlucky had we have dropped points in that game, although we did miss chances at the other end as well. It just wasn't vintage Milan. It wasn't anywhere near the levels that we are used to. So that led us into this game against Atalanta, who have been equally unpredictable this year, I think it would be fair to say. But they're still a top 4 rival. They're 3 points behind us coming into this game. They'd had impressive result away at Lazio, for example, winning 2-0 there. So they've proven that they can go into the big games and pick up 3 points. And I think that this was a litmus test. It was one of those where if we've lost, all those cracks reopen again. A draw didn't really help either team, especially with wanting to capitalise on Inter losing to Bologna earlier in the day. But a win would kind of solidify what we were doing, and it would just give us an extra boost, and it will prove that we are out of the tunnel. And a win is what we got.
Yeah, it was a huge one. Very obviously you can make a big point for. I'm stuttering, boys. I'm sorry. I struggled that whole sentence there. It was a 6-point game. You could argue it was a 9-point game with Inter losing as well, and we came out with all of them. So we're now tied for second, obviously on points, and Roma play Cremonese later today, so it could be a 3-way tie. And I believe currently, before that game kicks off, we have brought our goal difference back up to 11, which is equal with Roma. So, that's good. We're rebuilding that after the disaster that was January. But, 5 goals scored in the last 4 games, 0 conceded, all wins. Each team we've played in those 4 games has been a team that's been using 3 at the back for months, if not seasons now, and we've been the better side in each one of them. So that's definitely impressive. Our attacking is still lacking. You pointed this out on Twitter earlier today. You look at this game, Leao created so many clear chances, and there were 3 of them that really should have been put away that just weren't. He only got 1 assist, and he should have had 4 assists in that game. I mean, he was phenomenal. And unfortunately, it's in front of goal where we're all not connecting, where we're just not putting the ball in the back of the net. So that's the only thing I'm worried about right now. The defense has been unstoppable. No one's getting past them. I mean, Atalanta didn't have a single shot on target, I believe, correct?
No, not a single shot on target. Yeah.
The one thing that does worry me is they had a lot of corners. For a team that didn't have a single shot, they had a lot of corners. And I understand that's obviously us clearing the ball out, but maybe don't aim for a corner kick with that. I mean, I still have PTSD from it. Obviously, Mike back, it's a different story, and Thiaw's aerial presence is a different story. But
we had 4 corners to their 3. I thought they'd had more as well. I think they had a run, didn't they, of of 3 in a short space of time.
Yeah, I think they
just
had all
before
3 like
halftime.
back to back, and
Yeah,
we had a back
yeah.
to back only once, but it was
Yeah.
the first time I've seen us have back to back corners in a while, and it was when Thiaw took the corner and it actually found someone. We haven't been able to find someone in a while. Tonali's lacking on the corners, man. Like even his in swingers, his out swingers, doesn't matter what it is, he's not getting past the first defender. It's odd. So that should be our main investment, honestly, as a set piece coach. But anyways, someone else talk.
Steph, fire away.
Fire away. Yeah, I think we look back to the Torino game, and that wasn't convincing at all. I think it was, we kind of like felt like we snuck that, but then going into that, it was just like LLL. We like how the hell we turned this around, and that was a great starting point. But you could tell from that it was okay. That's not enough probably to build off, but it's something at least. And then the Tottenham game which was great, but even so, it wasn't probably managed in the best manner, where we let them sort of we absorbed so much of them attacking us. So it was once again still okay, how can we take a step further? And I felt like, as you said, Monza wasn't that quite step which I thought it would be. Yes, we probably should have made it 2-0 towards the end of the game. Same old story with not taking the chances, but also still allowing them to kind of get a few chances themselves. Correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't there a shot where, very similar to the Thiaw goal, where it hit off the post and hit off the back of Tatarusanu?
I was just going to say that. Yeah,
it rolled out, and that could have been another story there. And I think for me, it was going into this game was, are we sort of running off that luck of are we just one goal conceding away from being back to where we were? Are we kind of running that wave of getting the clean sheet? But this game was the first time I thought it was managed in such a perfect manner. The first half was incredibly strong when it came to just actually game control, and obviously just that impetus to kind of get that first goal, which was great. And the second half was just typical Milan fashion of letting them kind of, we can't dominate the game 90 minutes, and they're going to come at us with a bit more impetus to obviously score a goal. There were some rotations. They brought on Muriel and a few other attacking players, but it was Boga was obviously quite a standout one, but it was still manageable. You never felt at one point, okay, we're going to concede a goal here or anything like that, and not a single shot on target. AJ, great point about the corners, but at the same time, when you see a lot of all those 3 of those corners, I think that came from just actually getting out to the man quickly rather than letting that cross come in, which I think usually seems to happen, and then we're inviting trouble on ourselves anyway. But even so, defending the corners, not an issue. So you can tell defensively there's been such a massive improvement. Maignan's back, obviously that's a massive reason for that, but we're seeing, I think, with that back 4, including Maignan, just a perfect combination of experience, youthful aggression, height, and just tenacity to win the ball back as quick as possible, and they also help each other out really well. So defensively, they come leaps and bounds, especially since there's 19 goals conceded since the start of 2023, and we haven't conceded one now in 4 games. It's incredible. But and then in attack, I think there's something to be said with obviously putting away chances, because on another day that probably ends 4-0. And I don't think anyone kind of gets away from that, because it was Rafa a few times. It was Macias on the right foot when he gets put through as well. Giroud. Everyone seems to be kind of doing it, but obviously it's enough to get through it for now. But if you look at the next step, it's kind of, okay, we won't be able to keep clean sheets forever, but can we actually take some more of these chances and make games much more convincing? Yes, we might concede 1 goal, but we might win 3 or 4-1 rather than sort of 2-1s or lingering on sort of draws. But yeah, really good. I mean, we'll probably come on to standout players, but I think we first need to talk about the defense, because how Malick Thiaw is the first time I've been on the podcast since he's probably exploded into the team. We saw how he came about with the Empoli game on those blocks, but I kind of thought, okay, you bring him on toward the end of the game and he kind of sees it out. We're now seeing a starting caliber player, and coming from the conversations we were probably having about a month ago, whereas we probably should have gotten a Botman. What a signing that is, for 7 million euros. It's incredible amount of business. He's 21, 22 years old. He seems to have everything a modern day defender should have, including very good composure on the ball. He doesn't seem to be shaky with his passing either. He seems to be very comfortable, knows when to distribute it to Kalulu or Maignan or anyone like that, or the right wing back. He seems to be so clicked on. But yeah, I think it's good to kind of look at him and Kalulu and Tomori. What a defensive trio we have there. We just hope it just kind of continues. But
yeah, I mean, so take this as however you want, because I personally am not a big fan of rating apps, but for this moment, it forwards our agenda, so I'm rolling with it. In games that Malick Thiaw has had a full 90 minutes, his worst rating has been a 7.5. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
That's you can't ask for much more from a defender than a 7-5. And just for more clarity, though, the 3 games that weren't a 7-5 were all a 7-7. So I mean, he's one of the best we've seen in a long time. I mean, he just blows me away. I think he's better than his current run of form. These last 4 games has been better than the discovery of Kalulu in the second half of last season. At least that beginning takeoff, and obviously overall Kalulu's better. They're very similar. They're very similar. The second half surprise, and I even said yesterday I thought Kalulu was actually the best of the 3. But yeah, I'm just so impressed by Malick Thiaw, and not defensive related, but something I'm noticing which is kind of interesting. Offensively, you look at our starting 11 for the last game. There's only 2 players that don't have either a goal or assist this season, and they're the 2 you would expect. The 2 men in the thumbnail, Maignan and Thiaw, the ones that haven't played enough games. But everyone else has either scored or assisted a goal, which is interesting to think when we had so many backups in the game,
Beauty of pre-making a thumbnail as well is that you can you can reference it before the episode ends. I was Sky did a piece about Malick Thiaw, in addition to a load of other stats that either mean a lot to you or nothing to you. One thing stood out to me: he's now started 6 games and we've conceded only 1 goal in the games that he started. 1 goal, you just can't argue with that, especially when it's not like he's been hidden away as an outside centre back where you can get away with it a little bit more. He is the middle centre back, in a back 3. It's on him to be the anchor. It's on him to dictate how high the line plays. I noticed that he still has this free role from set pieces where he isn't man marking anybody. He's the one that's attacking the ball to head it clear. He did it again for one of Atalanta's corners yesterday. It is just fantastic. And it's kind of heartwarming after all the problems that we've had to see a young player come in and play with confidence rather than think every time the ball's coming our way, there's a big chance coming. Tatarushanu's not going to keep it out. Instead, we've got somebody who's come in with the youthful exuberance, with all the athletic mould to make a real difference in the defence, be it 3-man or 4-man. And he's doing exactly that. He's taking his chance just as Kalulu did last season, as AJ alluded to. And long may it continue. I thought Tomori, if there'd been some doubts about where he would be, given that up until his injury, he hadn't been at the same levels as last season. I thought Tomori was fantastic against Atalanta as well. There were 2 things that stood out for me in particular. There was one where he made a really, really solid tackle on Ademola Lookman. When it was clean, it was tough, but it was clean. It was a really, really good centre.
It was like an arrow tackle, wasn't it?
It was gorgeous.
Brilliant.
It was beautiful. And then there was one where he had a foot race with Højlund, who threatened to sort of run away down towards the edge of the box, and he timed that perfectly, and he beat him for pace as well. And Højlund is no slouch, he's rapid. I think he recorded like the fastest speed in the last round or something, top speed.
It's interesting because obviously Kvaratskhelia or whatever, I'll never pronounce that name correctly, but obviously he's the most hyped up new player this season. But a close second and third, Højlund and Lookman. We silenced both of them. They were the lowest rated players on the pitch for both teams yesterday. They were non-existent outside of being on the receiving end of a highlight tackle. That was it. They did absolutely nothing. Our defense is just so incredible right now. We're running out of words for it because we keep saying it the last 4 episodes, and that's a great problem to have. But we've already conceded 30 goals this season. Last season we only conceded 31. Obviously, more than half of those were in January. But I wouldn't be shocked if we still keep it this way the rest of the season.
It does make you wonder, because obviously it extends beyond that as well. It's 4 games without conceding now, plus another half and a bit up to the Lautaro Martinez goal for Inter. Now, obviously, you can't class that as a full game, but I think we're over 400 minutes now without conceding a goal. And I don't like these stats because it feels like jinxing it or whatever, but that's something you cannot argue with. It's not like we've been, bar that Monza thing, and it's funny how your luck changes when you're in form versus not in form. But bar that Monza chance where a half inch maybe changes the outcome of that. We haven't been lucky. We've just been defensively very organised, and I think Pioli deserves a lot of credit. He sacrificed a lot of his principles, and I think some people in the media, journalists, Arrigo Sacchi, obviously the ex-Milan boss, have been very critical of him for going to a more conservative approach. But I think Pioli is as good a psychiatrist as he is a head coach. I know I've said that before, but he's good at diagnosing the problems. He sees the individuals are struggling for confidence. So how can he improve the collective? What can he do immediately to stop the bleeding? And then we rebuild again from there. And yeah, look, a few weeks ago, we all wanted him sacked, or quite a few of us wanted him sacked purely. We thought he completely lost it. We thought there's no way with his tactics and his style as it is, he could recover this group of mentally damaged players. And yet he found a way again. So maybe we need to stop doubting this guy. But that being said, it is 4 wins in a row. It's not like, we've not definitely qualified for the top 4. We still lost our last 2 games against Inter. There's still blotches on the record, and it doesn't feel like we are fully, railing through teams like we did in like the post-lockdown run and the back end of last season. But the shoots of recovery are certainly there,
I think, I was just going to just jump on that because I think, I don't think it's a time right now for people who were, saying to not sack him to be like, oh, I told you so, because we're not there yet. And for me, still, there's, as you said, blotches on the record. We did go out in the Coppa Italia, which we look at the route now to the final, it could have been a great opportunity. Hindsight's 2020, but it's the truth. And then we got absolutely humbled in a Super Cup, which is also another trophy as well. So there, from that massive, horrendous moment, which came under his tenure, we lost out on 2 trophies, and obviously went further away from Napoli, even though they're doing incredibly well, which we probably wouldn't have, been a challenger anyway long term. But it's more what that represents, and we're now in a top 4 race. We made life more difficult than what it should have been. Really, it should have been a very comfortable finish in the top 4. We're now fighting ourselves out of it. So yes, Pioli looks like he's got things back on track. Take that a game at a time. But at the same time, you can't. I think Badea said in his video, about a month or so ago, he's got money in the bank because obviously the Scudetto, the top 4 finishes, recovering us from a humbling period of just the banter era. But at the same time, you can't just ignore. No one's escaped the criticism either. And I think secondly, it did kind of coincide to Ibrahimovic coming really back into this squad where the players seem to be kicking on again. And I do think there's something to be said with, yes, Pioli is a good coach, a great coach, and I love him a lot. But at the same time, I do feel like if you take Ibra out the equation and what he represents as a leader for this team, I don't know if these players react like the same as they do. I think he needs someone like him to come in and have these very direct conversations. We saw him after the game, what was it, last night, jokingly saying, I gave up my salary to give it to Rafa. And he
I don't know if that was a joke.
I don't, he probably ain't joking, but who else is direct enough to say that sort of shit, to maybe get him to sign that contract? It's Ibra, because he's the character, he's the enigma, he's the guy, and he's also the guy in the training who's gonna, if someone's slacking off or not chasing up, follow loose balls or half challenges and stuff like that, he's going to be telling them. So I do kind of think something needs to be said as well, that there's like a collaborative effort between Pioli and Ibra. We know this anyway because Pioli said that he leads a lot of his team talks. I don't know. I just think, But for now, at least, Pioli's safe. I think the questions of him getting sacked are completely out the window, obviously, but you still have to take it a game at a time because it's only 4 games, as you said. We're still in the top 4 race. But also those 4 games or so, plus more than that in January, were awful. Like, we cannot forget how bad that was. And that was horrendous.
Yeah.
So I think,
2 big question marks I have are, of course, hindsight things, but what are the changes that Pioli made to get us out of this hole? He switches to the 3 at the back and he implemented Malick Thiaw. You go back to Thiaw's time at Schalke, and he was, again, one of the highest rated members on the team, game in, game out, rarely had a bad game. Obviously, his last game was a 6-1 thumping to Union Berlin, who no one expected to be in title contention, yet they're either 2nd or 3rd right now in the Bundesliga, a game away from the top. So they're doing fantastic. You can't hold that against him. And he played in a back 4. And then when he did play in the back 4 with us, he was, again, great. So why was he not brought in earlier? It's not like the other players were just doing so well that he couldn't get a spot. We also had injuries as well. So there's a big question mark of what did Pioli see that made him think he wasn't ready to do that? And why did it take so many thumpings on us to make the change of a new formation? I understand you don't want to change it for the Super Cup game, obviously, but when you get to the games like Lazio, you just lost 4-0. There's no reason you should do the exact same thing for the next game, which we did, and we lost 5-2 to Sassuolo, a much worse team. You shouldn't be that reactive. You have to be more proactive than that. You can't wait until it's 7 games gone to make these changes. You got to start worrying about them immediately, but definitely after, the third game, the fourth game, like that's enough. That's enough for change.
Yeah.
If we're talking 4 good games as his redemption, why did we give him 7 chances to fall to the depths? It shouldn't have taken that long. It should have been changed much sooner. So for me, he's not completely exonerated yet, but absolutely step in the right direction. And I think you raise a fantastic question with Zlatan. He's like you said, he was here, he got us out of it, he vanished, we fell into it, he comes back, we get out of it. Whether that's coincidence, there's something there.
I want to read, before we go off Zlatan, I want to read one of the quotes that stuck out for me that he said to Sky last night. In among some other things, he said, I feel important, I have great responsibilities. When I'm not there, the team lacks the pressure I put on every day. In the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've seen the team look well. They all want to do more. And he also basically admitted to doing his recovery process long distance because him and Pioli agreed that that's what was going to happen. He felt he'd recover better long distance because otherwise he'd be wanting to get involved too early and stuff. So that's fair enough for him. But I just found that interesting. I think it's basically himself knowing that he has a role that goes above just being a player, and we all know it. But I think it's always eye-opening when Zlatan himself admits that he's got kind of be it mentor, be it more than that, be it assistant head coach role, essentially. And just on the Thiaw thing as well, his emergence definitely raises some questions about whether we are seeing that situation replay itself with other players, For the closing out of the game against Monza, we saw Timuri Bakayoko for the first time all season. And, you've got Astavronks on the bench. Tommaso Pobego hasn't been used all that much. Then you've got Yassine Adli, who can't seem to get a game at all, no matter what. Serginho Dest wasn't even included in the squad for yesterday's win over Atalanta. There are plenty of question marks about the way that he's used new signings. Now, you obviously give the head coach the benefit of the doubt in the sense that they see the players in training every day and they have their tactical instructions and they know the best players to carry out those instructions. It is also different for a centre-back because a centre-back's responsibilities are generally pretty simple. You need to try and stop the ball going in the net. It doesn't get much easier than that. However, for Thiaw to come into a defensive unit that was really hurting and make a noticeable contribution, it makes you wonder, is Franks really worse than Bakayoko? What is he being punished still for that foul for Roma's second goal that then started the decline in many people's eyes? If so, is that harsh? Yassine Adli, we've seen flashes of brilliance in the summer pre-season and those winter friendlies. Again, he's nowhere to be seen, not even as a substitute for the last 15 minutes when games have been safe, as they were in the first half of the season. It just makes you think, is Thiaw, just the first to emerge, or are there more question marks to be aimed at his handling of certain other players? And
that was another thing that I'm really confused about is Pioli substitutions. Everything you're saying, and you look at when Bakayoko came on, 83rd minute. Yes, Monza had some pushes late there, and I'm not even associating that with blame on Bakayoko. I don't think it had anything to do with that. I thought he actually looked decently well. The question is, does giving Bakayoko, someone who has an appearance-based redemption obligation clause that we've said we didn't want, and that's why we didn't play him all this year and most of last year. His last appearance was in May of last season and then came in this one. Why are we using up those appearances for a 7-minute stretch against Monza at the end of a game we're already up and winning versus bringing on a player we own in Yassine Adli, someone we could develop for us? We're not developing Bakayoko for Chelsea. At this point, I think everyone knows what he's going to be, but the point still stands. And Stefano, I know you love Brahim Diaz. I think he's been one of the biggest contributors to our squad as well this season. And I think CDK has been arguably a big flop. I don't think there's anyone who's really going to argue against that. But the fact stands, we spent a lot of money to invest in buying this player, and we're not utilizing him. We're not giving him minutes. We're utilizing players that we're developing for other teams. And if we're in a title race, I'm okay with that. You play who's doing the best. We lost the title. That's gone. We lost the Super Cup. That's gone. We lost the Coppa Italia. That's gone. We're fighting for top 4. And I do think we have a big enough gap now to where we're much more likely to get it than we were, say, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. But at what point do we start developing our assets for the future and not someone else's? And that's my issue with the Bakayoko thing, much less Diaz, because he's contributing so much more than anyone else that we're doing this for. But again, Yassine Adli needs to play. Ostervronks, we have a redemption clause. It doesn't look
I
like
was going to
it's gonna
say
get taken up.
we haven't bought ranks. Though. I mean, like I understand, but I can counter that argument. Like CDK versus Diaz, I could say the same thing about. All right, then he should play Pobega over ranks, like because.
And I agree with that as well. I agree.
But Bakayoko's the lone player too, so like if you're picking one lone player over another, you've got to pick the one that still has at least half a chance of being here next season. I mean,
I agree. No, I think there's a lot of things to pick up with this. It's like that Pioli's usually quite pragmatic when it comes to youngsters. He tends to say, okay, he doesn't really want to put them into the fire, but at the same time, I guess what he should have learned by this point is that when he does, it actually works out because these youngsters actually have the heart and Chow, Kalulu, Tamori, all these youngsters that he's actually has played because he's been forced to play them, have actually strived. There's so many things to pick apart with this. I think if you look at, he's trying to get results because he needs to win. And if you look at the subs he makes in all these games since he's changed in formation, he'll make the same subs in every game. I'm talking positionally. He'll sub the right wing back because Macias and Salamakers can't last 90. He'll sub the two forwards behind the centre forward because Rafa can't last 90. And then obviously Diaz is like a little wasp, so he can't last 90 either. And then he'll sub Giroud as well because he's like 40 years old. So those 4 of the 5 allocated subs will always make every game. So there's only one sub spare, which is either going to be a centre midfielder or one of the 3 centre backs. That's why probably we're not seeing ranks. And then obviously, like with the centre mids, he's either going to play Pobega, ranks, or what we've seen in Bakayoko, or even if Krunic, if Benacer's back, or Tonali. You know what I mean? There's too many options for that one sub. Or if he does the centre back option, he's going to play Gabriel, Kaya to come off the bench. It's because the other 4 are just glued on subs at the moment. I don't think he's going to walk away from that. He's always going to rotate the right wing back. He's going to throw on Rebic. He's going to throw Origi or Ibra instead of Giroud. And then we want to see CDK on coming anyway, so he's going to throw him on for Diaz. So it's a difficult one. I do think, it's annoying how pragmatic he is with youngsters. It lingers on the point of concern because sometimes you think it's logic, but at the same time, I do kind of fear that this is finally he's got numerically such a large squad and they're only in one competition, obviously the Champions League. He's going to play his best team in it anyway, but he's now fighting for his job. So he's going to play the best team possible. And I don't think he's going to experiment much at the moment. And the pressure's on so high. Are we seeing a coach that's struggling to embed the youngsters because of the size of the squad? Potentially. There's a lot of question marks there. But I don't really want to go away too much from the Atalanta game because we haven't really focused on.
I forgot we're in the review.
Yeah, let's talk about let's talk about the goals.
Yeah.
The goals are obviously I want to say Thiaw's goal. Like it was that good a strike, but unfortunately, it's going to go down as a Juan Musso own goal, and rightly so. It wasn't going in if it doesn't hit his back, but. Giroud header drops it back into the path of Theo Hernandez, 25 yards out minimum. And the level of technique required to hit that as straight and as flush through the air as he did. It was like a tracer bullet that cannoned off the post and went in. And there aren't many fullbacks in world football who can do that. And he is one of them.
There aren't many players that can do that.
Full stop. Yeah. Full stop. Yeah. I put in a tweet that it's borderline unteachable, and it's true. Like so many things have got to line up, and you've got to have so many different abilities to be able to do something like that. And it was stunning. As I say, the only small downside is that it didn't hit the post and go directly in, because then he's got another Puskas contender probably. That's actually been announced today. The Puskas Award winner for last season. I don't think Teo's going to win it, but he scored a screamer against Atalanta last year that got nominated, and here he is almost scoring another screamer. And then this second goal that clinched it, 84th minute. There's some funny symmetry in football sometimes. I was there. I was at San Siro for the game against Roma. It was a freezing night. It was quite foggy. It was pissing it down with rain. And, everything was going fine until there was a goal in the 84th minute. And that was Ibanez's goal to make it 2-1. And all of a sudden, panic stations set in. We ended up conceding an equaliser. And most people say that was the start of the decline. Giroud said it. There was somebody else who said it. I think it might be Krunic also said that was the start of a tough period psychologically. Last night, San Siro, night match, rain, fog, freezing temperatures, 84th minute goal. But this time it was Macias who got it, and it was to seal and properly seal a massive 3 points that feels like we've had our ebb and now we're definitely back on the ascension. It was an absolutely gorgeous ball from Leao. There's not much to say on the finish. It was a nice dink, 2 goals in 2 games for Macias in the new wing-back role that he's got. Fair play to him. Don't think his performances have been amazing by any means, but you can't argue with 2 goals. I want to talk about the pass from Leao because it's sort of interesting the way that his performance overall is being viewed. Gazzetta dello Sport had him down as the flop for us. They gave him a 5.5 rating out of 10. Now they are questionable. They've got a questionable agenda against Leao anyway. They're always the first to report about potential renewal drama and stuff. Mm-hmm. But that pass that he played, the through ball for the winning goal, not only should it have been his 3rd assist, as mentioned, he laid one on a plate for Giroud early on in the first half, and he laid one on a plate for Macias, who should have got a goal earlier at the far stick. He leathered it into the second tier somehow. I don't know how. But there aren't many forwards in the league that can play that ball. You know, he receives the pass. Macias is making the run between the 2 centre-backs that are left. He plays it first time across his body with his right foot. He almost hooks it the exact direction it needs to go. There's a thin channel for him to exploit. Ball goes perfectly up it. He almost does it no look. He's not staring at Macias's run while he does it. He's looking at the ball as it's coming to him. So it's basically a no-look pass. Puts the perfect weight on it as well. Not too hard where it goes through to the keeper, but long enough for Macias to get that separation from Jim City and get himself through and lob it over the keeper. I honestly thought Leao, bar his shooting boots weren't on yesterday. Fair enough. He curled one way over the bar. He had that one at the near post that he should have hit the target with. His shooting boots weren't there. But this is the point with him. When he's up for it, and I thought he clearly had the fire in him last night. I thought he looked well up for it. And when he is up for it, he will find a way to have an impact in the game. He will do something, be it a pass, as we saw. If his shooting boots were on that day, we could be talking about 2 goals, 2 assists kind of game. Like that's how good it was. And yet I still see people talking about his attitude and about his execution. And some people only want to focus on the bad. Now, there are also people who will perhaps rightly say, he wants 7 million a year. That's top money. So you better play like a top player all the time. That's a whole other debate. But, you know, perhaps, yes, he should be making a pass like that when he wants the money that he wants. But I just thought in general, his performance is picking up a lot of unnecessary flack and that he was pretty good.
Yeah, I agree. His shooting was the only thing that was lacking. Everything else was perfect. I do see the attitude things. There were a few opportunities where he was in for a pass to potentially be in on goal, and we didn't give him the pass. And I did see, kind of throwing the hands up or like one of those things. But you see that with every player. It's not just him. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you could say like Leao's got a bad attitude. You could say he has that fire in him and determination to score and win every game, every opportunity. And when we're making the wrong passes and he's the right pass, he's upset that he doesn't get it. And he should be. Every top player is going to be. You name me one top player who doesn't get annoyed when a good pass doesn't get given to them. It's just how it's going to be. It's not like he's going in the dressing room and talking shit to his teammates. There's no drama there. It's just it's frustration, and rightly so. He wants to win. He wants to make it easy, and he's not getting the opportunity sometimes. So it is what it is. Leao's fantastic. He's still our best player.
You got Lukaku shouting at Barella as well, like just as an example. And then during that Liverpool-Real Madrid game in midweek, Real Madrid are probably still the best European side. I know they're trailing Barca a bit in La Liga, but they're probably still the favourites to win the Champions League. Again, their level is higher than anything we've ever seen in club football at the moment. Their run of dominance in Europe is ridiculous. And yet Benzema is still shouting at people around him to deliver him better service. He still shouts at Vinicius, who is probably one of the most decisive wingers in the world, if not the most decisive. That's the level. When you demand excellence from your teammates, it's got to stick. It can't be selective. So I understand that.
And that's another thing, we're talking about the service that the people receiving Leao's passes are getting or whatever, they're not finishing these chances. You look at all these other top wingers. You look at Vinny. He's got Benzema, last Ballon d'Or winner. You look at Ousmane Dembele, who's another top dribbler in the world right now. He's got Lewandowski. Look at Mbappe, who's got Messi and Neymar, and a slew of other world class characters. You look at Caver, who's got Osimhen, who's probably the most informed striker in the world right now. And you look at Leao, and no disrespect to Giroud, but Giroud's not on that level. He's much older. He's not as clinical. He's not as fast. Like, there is a skill gap between Giroud and the rest of these strikers mentioned. And that's not Leao's fault that, he's creating the most chances in Europe. He's dribbling more than anyone else, but he doesn't have the numbers to back that up, because maybe the people receiving the passes, like Messia's point blank shooting in the second row, it's not Leao's fault that some of the assists that he's setting up aren't getting put away.
Who has the most big chances created in Serie A this year?
I believe it's Leao, isn't it?
It is. He has 12. Dybala has 11, and he's not even played for like all the season. That's kind of scary. And then Kvaratskhelia has 11 as well. But there you go. He should be on 12 assists in an ideal world.
Yeah, it's crossing technique. You hit the nail on the head, guys. But it's crossing technique. I think sometimes it's really weird, isn't it? Like, you feel like he should have made the cross like a second earlier. He seems to time it so well, Rafa, that it's kind of like it goes in and never seems to be like the person he's looking for, whether it's like Giroud or no one's offside with it, and they get this very clean opportunity. Like, he had the crosses towards the end of the game against Spurs. I think it was one for Malick Thiaw. Very weird technique. He like lobs it in, but it seems to be like a magnet towards the direction he's putting it in there. And it's different to say, like, let's say the right side where Macias just does a traditional cut in and does the left in in swinger. That's easy to defend. It's very predictable. Rafa just seems to get it like fucking magnet to wherever he's trying to get it to. So yeah, there's something to be said about how good he is at sort of like passing and just creating opportunities. Yeah, the assist last night was fantastic. Even like smaller moments, there was a bit where in the Macias sort of miss, you go to the start of the build-up play, hit the interplay between him and Thiaw Hernandez, and he does like the flick on over his head to put Thiaw through. Small things like that, no other player in our team is doing. Like Giroud can do his annoying fucking flicks that might work 1 time out of 10, but it's like Rafa doing it seems to just be like it works, and then the rest of the attack cycles through. Even the one that he missed up the chance when Tonali put him through, that all starts from a Rafa little flick on, and we're cutting the team apart. And then Tonali's there, finds himself in that position to put him through. The only thing for me is he needs to work on his being comfortable much more on his left foot, which we saw in that opportunity there, because you should really open your body up and slot that through. And B, it seems to land to him where he usually catches it on that right, and he tries to get that angle to kind of get that top right one with a curled finish. He did it against Tottenham. He did it again last night, and it just balloons its way over. And just kind of get a bit more control with that.
He leans back, like you get told to get your knee over the ball to make sure it stays down.
It's like
and
a fucking
he does.
golf swing, isn't it?
That one that he put over the bar. What I will say is, Brahim fucked that, man. Like, he did it twice where we had certainly an even number break, and he could either release the ball early to make sure it's ahead of Leao so he can stride into it, or he should wait and delay his pass and deliver it to his feet. Instead, both times it was 2 or 3 yards behind, and then he has to stop his run, and then he's leaning back. So I think it's a bit of both, but still, take another touch, take another touch, and hit it low. Never miss the target. Like that Tonali free kick, he's 20 yards out, and I'll never shout at a player for not scoring a free kick. However, when you've worked so hard to get such a dangerous position, and you spend a minute stood over the ball waiting, and to put it that far over. It's like, I'd rather it hit the wall, because it can do anything off the wall. It can drop to somebody. It could be a handball. It could be anything. But it can't do anything off some bloke who's sat in row G of the lower tier. It just can't. So I don't know why he hits it as hard as that. But anyway.
I was going to mention that last night, because, we're pretty shit from free kicks, like these kind of like short range angled ones. Usually the longer ones, we kind of get like Thiaw just like wallop it and see what happens. But like the shorter ones, we don't have an option. AJ, you said it as well, getting that investment in. Why doesn't Rafa like just give it a shot? He's got great technique. Like, why doesn't he like think, okay, Giroud, you I don't know, you give it a try on the left side, you're not that great. Tonali just has the scoop technique, which like worked once against Cagliari last year, but hasn't ever since then. So like, let's someone else have a fucking bite at the cherry. Like, I don't know, we don't have anyone else. Ibra, I think when he plays, he's obviously got a great technique for that powerful shot, but Rafa's got a great way to open his body up. We've seen it before. He hit the post against Monza, and it's like, just do the same thing. And even if you just get it on target, you know, the keeper might rebound it back into the area, or even get a free kick, get a corner, not just see it go over the crossbar. Like,
it's one of those things where when we get fouled in a good area for a set piece, like I don't get excited and say like, oh, this is a really good opportunity. It's more of a frustration, like, damn, there goes our chance. Because you have no confidence we're going to score from a free kick or a corner. And it shouldn't be like that when you have a guy who I think was 12th in last year's Ballon d'Or rankings in Leao, and it's like he's not getting these opportunities to take them. One thing to focus on from the Atalanta game, though, is Rafa getting booked and now suspended for Fiorentina.
Yeah.
Because to me, it should have been a red card. You know, Rafa's protest made sense to me. The yellow card to Rafa didn't, because this referee had to know. Obviously, he was one away from a suspension. It's not like he was in his face. He was literally on his knees saying, like, hey, man, like, that I was through on goal. And he just immediately yellow card like that. That's almost malicious, you know? And that's what frustrates me that way, because you saw it from the exact same referee with Inter last week. Barella is screaming point blank and didn't get booked. And it's like,
I was going to say, there's
no
the same.
consistency.
There's a consistency, at least, to always punish us with it, though. Every time we complain to a ref, there's a consistency to book our players. Yet when it's every other team screaming down their faces, they get nothing. And it doesn't even matter if it's our captain doing it. Our captain will still get booked, because they're the ones who are supposed to be coming to the. We saw it with Romagnoli when he was with. It was just ridiculous. But yeah, I agree. That's derived for us to get a yellow for even complaining about potentially stopping a goal scoring opportunity. And what's the fucking point? We might not even communicate with these referees anymore. But
the only thing is, and I agree, you know, fuck the refs always, but the only thing is, it depends what he said. You know, if he said something that was a bit inflammatory, then you're going to get it at you. But also, it was his first instance of dissent, and it didn't appear to be strong dissent to me.
And
also,
he was on the receiving end of a foul. Like, you're rightly upset. You just got
he had a legitimate. If he was screaming, check that VAR, it was last man, I was through. And then he has a legitimate gripe with the decision that was made, because VAR did take a look at it, a very quick look. I mean, that would have been quite a harsh red card.
I could see why it was a yellow, but live, and from Rafa's point of view, he doesn't see the guy way the fuck down there, you know?
Yeah. Live, the TV angle, I was like, he's through. You see them given. You do see them given, especially when a player doesn't really make much effort to get their arm out the way, and there's an element of it being deliberate.
If it was us, it would have been a red.
Well, yeah, this is it. But yeah, he misses. He will miss the Fiorentina game, so that does mean, though, that he will rest up fully for that Spurs game next Wednesday night. And another player that will miss the Fiorentina game is Krunic. Before we mention his suspension and how he might be replaced, I must say that he was very good in the second half. If there's been some doubts about whether he can play that midfield double pivot role, I've been one of them. I think he's one of those when you put him next to, if you put him next to Benacer, maybe, then he'd be covered for enough. But I thought that him and Tonali weren't really doing their job in terms of controlling the midfield in previous games, because they both need their hand held a little bit. But God, that second half, it was very good from him. One of the best performances that I think we've seen. And him and Tonali deserve praise for what they did yesterday. Albeit Coop Miners had a rare disaster class, but it is what it is. Because Rade was superb.
I didn't think either of them were that. Well, either of them, but I didn't think Krunic was that great, nor Macias defensively. And the reason being, I'm looking back at it because I'm seeing him getting all this applause, and I'm seeing him getting highly rated in lineups. But I know what I watched, so I'm like, what was I seeing that isn't being valued in too much? So I'm looking at it. It's the fact that they can't win a fucking duel to save their lives. You look at Krunic specifically. He won 4 of 11 duels in the entire game, was dribbled past 5 times. Like, those aren't good defensive numbers. So whether his passes are accurate, and they are, all of his passing was 100% yesterday in every category. So that's a fantastic thing to have. So I do get why he got that high rating. But defensively, I wasn't impressed with him. And exact same thing with Macias. He only completed 6 of 12 duels and was dribbled past twice. He had 10 recoveries, but a lot of those were because his first touch was so poor he had to go chase after it. So I don't know. I'm not too thrilled with their performance. I understand that passing is obviously huge, especially with Tonali's inability to do so. But yeah, I think defensively they leave a lot to be desired still.
I think
Yeah.
Jules factors in aerial duels as well, and Tonali and
Yes.
Krunic are they're not gonna win many. But also, they don't have to win all their duels
They
because
don't.
the
I was gonna
the,
say
the,
Sure, but you
the
should win more than 50%. I mean, they're
no,
not
but
even hitting half.
Kalulu and Tomori are so aggressive that they were regularly stepping into midfield to anticipate the ball even getting there. And as for the dribbled pass stat, I don't really get it because I didn't see him get dribbled past leading to a big opportunity at any point because there were no big opportunities. They didn't have a shot on target, so I don't know where it
That's
comes
because
from.
our back line was so incredible. They shut it
But
down anytime the midfield
Yeah,
got
but
broken through.
I think that's the point. You can't keep out everyone all the time, but what you can do is at least the person who gets past you make their life a bit difficult, and then obviously then it gets clamped down by a Kalulu or a Tomori or a Chow. Like it's impossible to think that they're going to shut that. Like Krunic isn't a standout DM, is he? But he does kind of offer you a total range of everything. And he, even just kind of like how many got booked yesterday, he just kind of did the right thing just to kind of cut down that attack when it was the right time. Sometimes you've got to do simple things and just be very smart with your moments and how you might press a player. I thought it was just solid, and then the second half was incredibly well when you think about his composure on the ball, recycling possession, something that we probably don't really attribute to the player. And I think with Tonali and Krunic, when you look back to the first game last season, when I remember we played Sampdoria away. Ollie, remember me and you went to watch that game in Camden, and the thought of these two guys playing as our sitting DMs was quite scary because Tonali's coming off the back of a shit season, and Krunic obviously isn't his natural position. He's played in every other fucking position at the pitch. But yeah, like them two guys playing, so they got a bit of history there, those two, with actually probably learning about how they play with each other. But obviously it's not a preferred two going forward when you get Benacer back as quick as possible. And I do think he does suit Krunic more because the Empoli backstory as well. But Macias as well, look, he surprised me. I think he's been pretty. He had a much more better game than he did against Monza in all aspects. He had a bit of a hash with that first touch, which I think Diaz had to come back through to help like mark out. But got another goal, doing pretty well. Does really well when it actually gives us an option as an outlet to break out from defense to attack. Look, we'll talk about it in tops and flops anyway, but yeah, I just thought it was a good performance.
Yeah, we'll do tops and flops and wrap up for Atalanta. Then we've praised everyone who needs to be praised. I think there. My top of the match. I couldn't possibly give it to anybody else after I just waxed lyrical about him. I'm going to give it to Tomori. I thought you can make a case for any of the back three standing out, and I think that they were all probably like a 7.5 out of 10. Very, very few errors, none significant. And I'm giving it to Tomori because it could have been difficult for him to come back into this back three and find himself instantly, but he seems to have done that. And it's good to see because, as I say, his levels before injury weren't brilliant, and yet he's come back in and he looks back to his confident best. So yeah, could give it to any of the back three, but I'm going to give it to him.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I'm going to give it a different person in the back there. I'm going to give it to Kalulu. He was the one who stuck out the most to me. Every time there was a mistake on the right side, and with Krunic and Macias, there was quite a few of them, and he was always there to bail them out. So definitely Kalulu was my guy.
And I'm going to go for the third one. Let's just do the whole suite. Let's go for Chow. I would lean maybe slightly towards Kalulu, although I do understand the Tomori thing, especially against Lookman. But Chow has just been, against one of the most hottest players in the league right now. Incredible performance. And I think just thinking about this on the podcast just now, I think when we look back to a target we probably would have liked to go for, in the summer, Brahim. A lot of what I see from Chow is probably what I expected if we did sign a Brahim, what he would bring, and that sort of that sweeper, that athletically tall, strong player. And to think that only cost us 7 million euros is incredible business from Maldini. But yeah, another standout performance. Yeah, just wonderful.
And a special shout out to Leao as well. He deserved it if there was more finishing from the others.
Yeah, I'm glad we picked the back three between us. That's kind of what I was banking on happening. We must say Maignan made his return after over 5 months out, and he might as well have been asleep. Like he could have just rested up against the post there. But on a serious note, it was good to have him back because he looked as if he had not been out at all. He was barking instructions. He was lining up walls for free kicks at the other end of the field as he has done before. Was pretty good coming out and claiming the few crosses that were near him. I thought he was walking, or rather jogging a little bit gingerly at times, but perhaps his calf was either compressed, socked pretty bad, or taped up. I don't know, but I'm still a little bit fearful that that he's going to tweak something again. Flop of the match. This is a tough one because nobody stood out as being absolutely awful. However, I'm gonna have to give it to Giroud, and that I feel tough in saying that because obviously he technically got an assist for the first goal with that header backwards, and he did have some nice flicks and he did have some good hold-up play in the first half. However, he missed a massive chance, and it could have been two. That one from the Leao cross in particular, you would back him to stick that away all day, and it wasn't happening. He got that goal against Torino, obviously, which was a big one. And prior to that, he had a goal against Sassuolo. But 2023 has not really been kind to him in general from a goal-scoring point of view. We're leaning on him more than we should do because Origi's still shit. And Zlatan obviously is going to play 15 minutes, maybe 20, 25. He's going to amp it up a little bit. But yeah, you got to be sticking us away. You got to be sticking us away, Ollie G.
This one's tough. Here's my thought process. If the first whistle blows, minute 0, everyone starts at a 6.0 rating. And then you do something good, it goes up. You do something bad, it goes down. Mike Maignan didn't have to do anything this whole game, So I think he might have the lowest rating at still a 6, simply because Atalanta didn't do anything. There was nothing for him to do.
Flop. Mike Maignan flop.
It's hilarious. But no, I mean, I'm not going to give him my flop, but I think if I'm trying to give assign a rating to it, he probably would be the lowest with just the neutral score. But I'm going to give it to Macias because I really wasn't thrilled with him, even though he scored a goal. And Lorenzo did that last time he scored a goal, so I'm just going to keep that trend going.
We're going to give it to Maignan. That would have been hilarious. Yeah, I'm going to go for Tonali, man. I think a lot of fans aren't really happy with his passing distribution. And it's not in the way just to be like, look, he ain't it, because he's still very young and he can still build on the sort of technique and passing ranges, etc. But I don't know. For me, I just felt like Krunic had a better game in midfield, which isn't supposed to be the case because Tonali's the starter. I do feel like he's still not 100% yet. The version we saw of him towards the end of last season, and he's such a direct player, Tonali. He doesn't really have a calm aspect to him. He's always gun-ho. He always wants to make those attacking runs, be pressurizing. I know a lot of those reasons are great to see in the centre midfield. He's much more adept to a box-to-box position, but sometimes in a game like that, you just want more of a calming presence. And I think that was a game where I felt like I would have loved to see Bennacer play instead of him. Because we needed to control the game much more. It's got me wishing that when Bennacer does come back, the two of them can have that tandem again. But yeah, for me, it's Tonali, not for many reasons. That free kick was pretty trash. The crosses were pretty trash. The corners are pretty trash. Look, I mean, I need something, but because I think there weren't many bad performances, but I wasn't really impressed with distribution from him. So yeah,
I'd like to put forward an honourable mention. That may draw some heat, but CDK really pissed me off when he came on.
I was actually going to go for CDK.
Not only did he was he jogging on counter attacks, and I'm thinking you were basically like when you played football on the playground, goal hanging, where you basically just stand on the back post and wait for a tapping or whatever. He was basically doing that for the last few games. And he couldn't score. And then the flip side, yesterday, he was just jogging his way behind counter attacks rather than busting a gut to get in there. He had that thing where he was one-on-one with his man over on the far side, and he had a perfect opportunity to cross because we had 2-on-2 in the middle. Ibra was one of them as well, so he could have.
Leao was the other.
Leao was the other. He also could win a header or whatever. And then for some reason, he just decided to dribble and then lose possession. Look, I tweeted something similar, but CDK's got to help us to help him. We'll defend him, but we need something to defend him with, and that's just indefensible. But look, Zlatan made some interesting comments after the game that I want to mention. Again, this was to Sky. He said, I got a good look at him. I see a bit of myself in him. At Ajax, this same moment lasted me a year. Everything's new for him. He's in a new country, and there are things that influence him on the pitch. When he unlocks, he'll be off. As in, off he goes. That's good. That's, he doesn't have to protect him. He was probably always going to protect him in the media. But for him to say, I see a bit of myself in that from 20 years ago when he was at Ajax. 20 years ago when he was at Ajax. I think that will reassure him quite a lot. And I also harbour some hopes that Zlatan's with him on the training ground and telling him plenty, imparting all of his advice. All the best. All the best. Like when he shouted at Çalhanoğlu, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah. I don't understand you. No, I think just with CDK, I don't actually care at the moment. I do believe he will come good. I don't also understand this urgency. Yes, I want to see him play as many minutes as possible, but I care about the team winning more than this kid developing. And I'm sorry, that's the truth. And what we shouldn't be looking at when he does come on, feeling like a testimonial. Oh, let's get this guy a goal. Like when I watch Diaz, I don't give a shit if Diaz scores or not. I want to see him just have a good game and help us to win. And I want the same from CDK. I don't care if he scores, but it feels like right now the fan base is so hell bent on seeing him score a goal. And as you said, it could be the ugliest tap-in ever, but that's all they care about. Like, I don't care, to be honest, if he doesn't score a goal for the rest of the season, as long as he integrates himself into this team much more better and plays good football and helps us win. That's all I care about. Yes, he's an attacker. Yes, he should score goals, but work on the basics rather than just trying to shortcut your way to score a goal and thinking that helps everything.
This is it. I wrote him a bit of it wasn't a rant. It was just sort of looking through everything that's contributed to get CDK up to the point that we're at now. The main point is when this happens, it has to happen organically. He can't score his first goal because he's in the box all the time, and eventually one falls to him with an open net that he can't fucking miss. That ain't gonna fix it.
He did miss it though.
No, don't. That isn't gonna magically fix everything. Did you see that video that was it was Rooney at the end of the season with his 2-year-old son waddling around trying to get CDK to score. Yeah. Look, it is what it is. But I thought Zlatan's comments helped. Let's move on then. Preview the next game.
We're an hour in.
Yeah, no. Look, we're having fun. We haven't been able to celebrate many things recently, so it's right that we overanalyze victories. So Fiorentina
shit on Pioli and City. We won, but it's still bad.
For over half of the episode, Tonali fucking shit. Fiorentina this season, really, really strange, to be honest. If I told you that they've only won 6 games out of 23, that's no bueno, They started the season pretty well. They were top half. They got themselves up to top half for the Serie A break for the World Cup, and since then they've won one game, and that was against Sassuolo on the 7th of January. Since then they have lost 4 out of 6. Their most recent result was a 1-1 draw in the derby against Empoli, where they had to really scrap for that. Before that, they lost to Juve, lost at home to Bologna. They're struggling. They're under pressure. They're into the Coppa Italia semi-finals, where they will play Cremonese, which is quite funny because they've got a pretty good run there. And they are into the round of 16 of the of the Conference League, where they will play Sivasspor. So maybe they're focusing more on the potential for silverware that route. But in the league, they've been very up and down. That's the bottom line. They're not shipping loads and loads of goals. They've let in 30 goals in 23 games, but they've only scored 24. So basically, they're struggling to replace. They're struggling with the absence of Vlahovic, who hasn't been there for a full season, and Nicolas Gonzalez is their top scorer by a mile. So they're relying on him too much as well. Cabral has not been as good as people thought that he would be. Fiorentina a bit up and down at home as well. So how are we feeling about this one?
I feel pretty really good. I mean, given our recent form, you look at head-to-head, they've kind of been a bogey team for us in recent years, but not so much lately. And given their form and us finally finding form and very good form at that, it's not like we're scraping out wins. We're keeping these clean sheets, even with small goal margin victories. I think we'll be fine. And now that we actually got 2 goals in a game, maybe this is one we could kind of put them to the fire and maybe go all out, and maybe this will be the one CDK gets that silly goal. Maybe Zlatan will get a goal. Who knows? But I know it won't be Leao. He won't be playing. So
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Maybe Rebic will score. He probably will. Knowing Rebic, he'll get a brace.
Yeah, no, I think Fiorentina is the same old story. They look good, and everyone talks a good talk about them at the start of the season. Italiano and these young and sort of like attacking players. But deep down, it's like a cake that's been. I'm trying to think of a metaphor right now for the last like 5 minutes, but I can't for the life of me. But like a cake that someone's baked and it looks good, but when you poke it, it just like deflates because there's no substance, there's no foundation as to how the premise of making a cake. I don't even know. This is a shit metaphor. But anyway, what I'm trying to get to is that Fiorentina is all a lot of hype, but really they can easily be broken down. They're not that good defensively. They're also not that good attackingly. They're just a team that, everyone seems to hype up because they got an attacking based coach, which, doesn't seem to be delivering too much. But yeah, I think we beat them without Rafa and without Krunic, because I just think the momentum will go in our favour. I think defensively we're very strong. It's going to be a tough game because obviously it's away from home and their fans are always up for it. And we seem to always get these contentious decisions against us in their stadium. So, yeah, I'm just curious to see who he plays instead of Rafa, whether it's going to be Origi or Rebic or potentially CDK. I don't know. But at the same time, I think we are going to miss an outlet, which we've had with Rafa in this formation. So I'm quite curious to see who plays there, and obviously who's replacing Krunic, because is it going to be of ranks? Is it going to be Pobega? Is it going to be Bakayoko? Because I think we're all sort of under the impression that Benacer won't be back in time for it. But
I just wonder if they might rush Benacer back now. We don't want that, but if he was like 75% ready and we thought, no, let's have him back for Spurs. Now do we think maybe we can flip those?
I'd argue though, with that, I would rather, we can't just put him back in the Spurs game, this massive game, without any football underneath his legs recently. I think if he can be back for it, then get, even if it's just 60 minutes, get something under his legs just to get him match fit and going into that Spurs game, because that's huge. Because I do think, look, we could potentially draw to Fiorentina and I'll be fine. But that Spurs game is so big. I think that's so big for us, man. And I think we need Benacer for that, to control that game and potentially win that game.
I wouldn't start Benacer if he's at 75%. I would give him the final 15, maybe 20 minutes. Just kind of take the Zlatan route, ease him in towards the end of the game, and just give him the footing, and then start him against Spurs if he's back to 100%. Because I don't know, I feel like we rush players back and then they get hurt longer immediately. We saw it with Zlatan, we saw it with Tomori, we saw it with Mike. I'd rather just not. So
I honestly didn't think we were going to see Maignan against Atalanta. Mid part of the week, he was training with the squad, but then the journalists kept saying, the next few sessions are decisive. Maybe we'll see the same with Benacer this week. Maybe he'll start training with the team and they'll either taper off his workload or he'll just be back and he'll be ready. They don't seem to be leaking much conclusive to that effect at the moment. So fingers crossed he's back. But I agree, you can't risk it. Not with how important he is to us, because the setback's another few weeks out in the most decisive part of our season. We've got some tough away trips coming up with Roma and Napoli away still to play. So yeah, definitely don't risk it. And then I think in terms of replacing Leao, it should be Rebic, but I wouldn't be surprised if he did something stupid and played like Origi and Giroud up front together. I just get that feeling. I get the feeling that he wants to do it and wants to try it. And yeah, they're not two target men, really. Origi can play a similar kind of role in terms of having freer movement, but I just would like a mobile forward up front. Maybe even Origi and Rebic start together. I don't know. Give Giroud a bit of a rest ahead of the Spurs game. Or maybe Zlatan is a lot better and can give us 60 minutes.
Zlatan said he wants to play a full 90, but I don't think he's going to do that anytime soon.
No. He'll be getting carried around by his team.
Yeah.
Get him a goal.
You want to talk about testimonial matches? I mean, I feel like the end of every game is one with him.
Oh man,
Play Ibra and Giroud up top.
Yeah, Maximiliano Ibrahimovic.
walking football.
Oh man.
But predictions. Then we'll do predictions. I generally feel pretty crap going into these Fiorentina away games because I feel like we slipped up. I mean, there was that nightmare game last season where we lost 4-3, and it was all very strange. And there've been previous poor results against them. I remember getting outplayed by them 2-0 in the first. I think it was Montella's first game in charge, I want to say. But that was pretty poor. It might have been Mihailovic. I can't remember. And therefore, I have negative memories of going to the Frankie. But I'm going to say that we win and we keep another clean sheet because why not? That seems to be the way at the moment. We've gone 1-0. We've gone 2-0 in the last game. I'm going to stick with 2-0.
I'm going to one-up that, and I'm going 3-0 victory. And I think we're going to see a Thiaw header goal from a corner. And I think Rebic is going to have a brace.
I'm going 1-0. I think it's going to be a bit of a grind without Leao, and if Benacer doesn't play, I think it's going to be a bit of a grind. But I think we'll get the goal at some point in the second half, and then probably just see it out. Yeah, I don't know who scores. Probably Diaz. I go Diaz. Piss off Lorenzo.
Probably Balotelli, to be fair. I'm going to skip straight to questions. There's no huge talking points, but I am conscious of the time. So we got plenty of good questions in. Keviano asks, will we ever get our own stadium? It does sound like things are moving pretty positively in that direction in the sense that we're going to ditch Inter and build one on our own. There's a few sites being evaluated by the sounds of things. I think, I don't know what you guys think. I think it's the right time. I don't see a point in building another shared stadium. There's so much potential in having our own stadium that becomes our own sort of Milan village or whatever you want to call it. And we get all of the revenue and, that's too lucrative. If we're going to do this, let's do it right. And let's leave Inter behind because Inter are leaking to the media that they're going to do it. We thought of it first. We're going to do it ourselves. No, you're not. You've got no fucking money. You owe a lot of money to a lot of people who are not going to be happy if you take out another €1 billion loan to finance a stadium when you're issuing bonds that you need to repay. It's not happening. They're not doing it. So let's do it. Let's leave them behind.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I wanted that before the Inter had money problems. It's like, why are we building another joint stadium? Doesn't make sense. So yes, all us. Let's go.
Yeah,
I can understand the appeal of building a joint stadium is sharing the costs. But in this case, we don't know if we're going to be sharing the costs. We'll probably be footing all of the bill and Inter are repaying us in some way. Fuck that.
We might just still get all revenue until their half is paid up, which, I mean, that'll take years.
The expensive time is like, how long have we been hearing about a new stadium being on the pipeline, and then it's been held back because of the fucking mayor of Milan, also Inter, and they can't even afford a garden shed. Let's just do our own way.
Sorry,
you say that he's a garden shed, but they still haven't even bought him yet. So they can't even afford him. Yeah, they cover.
I mean, when was the first project? Jesus Christ, greenlit for the stadium? Was that like 2015?
3 years ago. Oh, the first one, yeah.
The first one was Barba.
Barbara. I don't know. It gets to the point where I do care, but I don't care at the same time now because until I see something solid and concrete, Isaac keeps mentioning Sesto, and I keep thinking about the player that plays for Salzburg, that striker that we were linked to.
Sesko.
Sesko, yeah. I keep thinking that. I'm like, oh, we linked with Sesko again. I can't be asked. Just give me something. It's like the Rafa extension. Just give me something when I know something, rather than this pointless paper talk. Is pointless right now. But hopefully we go our own way, leave them behind, and let them dissolve themselves into the abyss of nothingness, and that would be nice.
Love that. Echo those words entirely. Gregory Peck asks, if Massara and Moncada do leave, they've both been linked with Juventus, who would you bring in to replace them? He wants Michael Edwards, who used to work at Liverpool. I don't have a name. That's a great question. And I'd have to come back with a name next week because I haven't done enough research into who's a really good sporting director around Europe. I know Michael Edwards' work is very highly regarded. But what I will say is I wanted to mention the Massara and Moncada links to Juve. all the information from reliable sources, that is anyone but Tutto Sport, who broke the fucking news in the first place, are saying that both Massara and Moncada are happy at Milan and want to continue. Massara and Maldini go beyond being co-directors. Like, they're actually very, very good friends now. They basically see each other every day, even on days off. Nothing suspicious, though. They're just good friends. And then Moncada, his contract's up at the end of the season, but it sounds like we're in talks to get that renewed. Would I be surprised if Moncada is going to be potentially... clubs are lining up trying to poach him? No, not at all. His record speaks for itself. However, I do back us to just give him what he wants and keep him around, because he'll just point at Malick Thiaw and say, "You really want to lose me?"
Yeah, Moncada's a guy you can't lose. He's the best in the business. We lose him, that's it. There goes what Maldini's hiding behind. Like, it's done. Massara, I don't think is as big of a deal as Moncada, but it is what it is. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think Moncada we definitely need to keep, because if we're keeping with this project, which is obviously trying to spend and tap into these great youngsters around Europe, and we talk about centre forward, I think potentially this summer we do get a more mobile centre forward, a much more younger player, pick him up from, like, I don't know, these other leagues like Germany or France, or any of these other leagues he's just kind of pick these studs out of. I think that does come from that and comes from Moncada's scouting, so we do need him to stay. Replacements, I'm not too sure myself. Fuck knows, maybe like Nedved if he's popping about. Get him
probably in jail.
Drunk on the streets of Turin. Yeah, bless him.
Will be the first time.
I don't know.
Christian...
I'll give a shout out to probably a few on Milan Twitter who could probably do a good job as well. I'm sure there's a lot of reviewers on Twitter who know their way around other leagues. Lewis, no, I will, unjokingly aside, Lewis has actually got a great eye for talent, so I'd throw him out there. But it's a different profession.
There you go.
Hey, look,
put in your CV.
There is a market for it. I mean, you look at Will Still, who is currently the manager of Stade Reims, where Balogun is banging in all those goals. Reims are paying €25,000 per game as a fine because he doesn't have his UEFA Pro license yet. Why is that? Because he was hired off the back of his achievements on Football Manager. So there's a path for everybody, is what I'm saying. And if you haven't watched videos of Will Still go from speaking Southern English to fluent French with the most perfect French accent ever, then go and watch those, because it's brilliant. 1 minute he's shouting at Balogun like he's on the streets of Croydon somewhere, and the next he's just like on the French Riviera. It's superb. So he should be our next manager. Christian Espinoza asks if we are planning on extending the contract of Ketelaere. We don't have any inside scoop on that, but you'd hope so. He's out of contract at the end of the season. He's the best forward in the Primavera by a country mile. And I think he's the one who, along with Kubis, is probably closest to breaking into the first team. So get him renewed. Christ, don't let him walk away for free.
Yeah, I don't think we will renew him on a youth contract. I think we'll give him a senior contract. And that's probably why we won't go for a right winger in the summer. Hopefully, like Steph said before we recorded, we go for a striker instead. And then we got Ketelaere for the winger spot.
There was some speculation that he was going to sign his pro deal when he turned 18, which was only his birthday is the 24th of December. So,
months ago.
Yeah. So, probably just waiting, and he'll sign, because he can sign a 5-year deal then. Yes, we absolutely should sign him to a 5-year deal. The kid's unbelievable. He made his Serie A debut against us at 16.
I wonder if, just on Xhaka, I try to think to the team in this new formation. I don't know, right wing back, man. I look at Bukayo Saka. For Arsenal, we kind of did a good job at that point as well. I see maybe a similar mold to a player there. He's good with both feet. Macias is what we've seen there as a winger being able to adapt into that position. And I think what we have with Kalulu and the rest of the side being very good defensively does have that opportunity to kind of go down that right side. So I don't know, be intrigued if he does renew his contract and he does break into the first team side. That might be his position as opposed to just the two behind the striker. But
my gut feeling, now you've said that, is that he goes to Arsenal, because then you've got Xhaka, Shaka, Saka.
You forgot the child.
I had to think that through.
If only they kept Laka.
Fucking hell, man, get him back.
Wasn't there a team that had 80% of their players named Gabby or something like that. I can't remember.
Wouldn't surprise me.
Nah,
There's about
Chel-
15 Dembélés knocking about. I think
yeah.
you could make a
Chelsea,
decent team of
Chelsea for Fofana. That's another
Yeah.
one.
yeah, farming the Fofanas.
Fofana.
Final one. Juan Melendez has a couple of hot takes for us. Number one, the hate on Brahim Diaz is wrong. A player with passion and technical.
Oh, is this my burner account?
Yeah, I think
I was
so.
gonna say, where have I heard that before?
Yeah,
I agree.
Stefano just agrees straight up.
No, I know. At the end of the day, look, people dislike it because yes, he's undersized. Yes, he doesn't release the ball quick enough, and he's on loan, and he's got no long-term future potentially with the squad. But is he one of the worst players in the side? No. Does he actually give us a lot of output on the pitch? Yes. And people just hate it because he plays in the same position as another kid. We're trying to testimonially give him a goal. That's the simple fact about it.
Make a wish.
Diaz is on 7 goals and assists this season. I mean, those are good numbers. The only person above that, quick look, is Giroud and Leao. I mean, that puts him in the very upper echelon of our team.
So he's
Yeah.
I don't think the hate's justified. My only thing is what we talked about earlier, what Stefano just said there is he probably isn't going to be our player next season. It sounds like Madrid want him. It doesn't sound like we even have the buyout clause we thought we did. I don't know. I keep seeing conflicting reports on that.
Not official, but gentleman's agreement.
Yeah, and that means fuck all. So
Real Madrid are generally not gentlemen when it comes to the transfer window.
yeah.
So
So
we'll see.
I don't know. That's my only concern is
Yeah.
that. But yes, he shouldn't be getting hated for his play style and how he's playing. I mean, he's got a better output than the majority of our squad.
It's a serious question, and I think most people need to ask themselves this: if CDK got the same minutes as Diaz, and you swap him around, does he give you the same statistical output as Diaz?
I don't think he would this season, but Diaz didn't last season either, or the season.
Well,
prior,
no, I agree that, but let's just look at right now, and I think that's why people don't like Diaz because they want CDK to get his minutes. But does CDK give you the output as Diaz? I don't think he does. And it's all just people blowing up this imaginary interpretation of what CDK would be if he got Diaz's minutes and how that might help us mentally. There's also probably a reason why Pioli's limiting his minutes, probably because he ain't there yet fully. But Diaz is, and he's clicked into this side. But
yeah. I can see why Pioli's relying upon him as well. He's in his 3rd season with us. It's bizarre that it's just his 3rd season on loan, and here we are potentially developing the talent for somebody else. But Real Madrid, we've got that kind of relationship with Real Madrid where if he goes back at the end of the season, I don't think that's it. No. I think they're gonna something will come of it. We'll either get a development fee in some way if we do the buy and the buyback thing, or they might say, here's another talent that we've got that we think would be useful for you on loan. Or I think something would come of it with Real Madrid, whereas it might not with Chelsea or another team. I don't mind the criticism that Brahim gets for his playing style and for his decision making, because sometimes I think for a player in his 3rd year in the league and his 3rd year with this team, he shows some very questionable decision making at times. However, other times he picks the lock. Other times he's good. I don't really agree with a lot of the height based abuse that he gets though. I saw him misplaced that. I say misplaced that ball that was behind Leao. I looked on Twitter and it was like, midget bastard, you small foot. You know what I mean? It's all you've got so much else to go on, and it's like the Calabria hate. It got so personal from certain people at one point. It's like you've got so much
Twitter
to
likes
go
to
on.
see who could be the edgiest with their insults, and I'm no angel myself. I've said some wild shit as well, but the majority of that hate, I don't think is even meant by the people posting it. It's just they want to get the likes on the Twitter. The bird.
At the end of the day, he scored a header this season. I don't think Rafa has.
No, I don't think he has.
He's a midget.
Okay.
No, Zlatan, no goals this season. You can't argue with stats.
I do. CDK. Look, I just think with Real Madrid as well. I don't personally think they want. There's a room for him there, regardless of depth. They don't play the formation that will suit him. He's a cam. He's an advanced midfielder. They play a 4-3-3, strict 4-3-3. He's not going to play in the midfield three, and he's not going to play on the right wing. Although Ollie loves the thought of him playing right wing, I don't think he's going to stay there. I honestly think there's a discussion to have at the end of the season on the table that we buy him for a reduced fee that was previously agreed on.
I'll stand by my my previous thing. Barca with Gavi and Pedri. just start calling him Brahim and play him as a box-to-box midfielder and see what happens, you know? Maybe that'll be it. Or Ancelotti will like put him like deep lying playmaker or something, you know, and just stand there frowning when it doesn't work.
Why is it always that sorry, the last thing on the whole thing, it's always the Spanish newspapers that come out after he scores a goal or has a good game, is that Real Madrid want him back. Like, all right, what is there anything this week?
Well, once he declares with Morocco, like Marca will stop saying that Madrid want him back.
Exactly, nationalist. The Spanish and Italian sources have been at war. Like the newspapers have just been at war since he re-signed. With the Italian sources saying Milan have an option to buy him. Madrid-based sources saying there's no option to buy. It'll have to be a negotiation. When in reality, the truth is probably somewhere in between, like Fabrizio's saying. Where there's an agreement to talk about a permanent deal. We'll see. What if, for example, Brahim goes back because Asensio's leaving and he's joining us?
I would take Asensio. He's got the same numbers, but in the position we need more. And he's like 4 years younger than Macias, so it's an upgrade.
Yeah, he is. We'll wrap it up here then, boys. Thank you to everybody who made it along this far. Hoping you're enjoying the more upbeat tone that we've got since we started winning games again and keeping clean sheets and stuff. Long may it continue. I've been your host, Ollie Fisher. You can find me on Twitter at Ollie Fisher. Being joined by AJ.
Yep, I'm always here. I always will be until the day I'm not. And we had Stefano. I'll say it right this time.
Very cryptic from you. To the day you're not. Like giving me part of your salary or something like that. Pleasure to join me. That's not my Twitter handle down there, by the way. You probably already know what mine is, so I won't bore you with that. But cool. Pleasure, as always.
What he means is by he'll always be here until he's not, is that he stays in this stream room until the next episode. He just sits here and waits for us to jump back in.
I have had the studio open since 8 o'clock this morning when I made the graphic, and then I just left.
That is serious dedication. Be sure to drop us a like. Comment below with your thoughts on the team, of course, and some of the questions that we got. It's always great to hear your thoughts and give us a rating if you're listening on a podcast platform. That will really help us out. Subscribe to the newsletter as well. We're rolling that back out over the next few weeks. We had our most recent issue last week. You can find that by searching newsletter on Twitter, and we will also put a link in the description as well, so you can go and subscribe to that for some more bonus content. And there's some exciting news to come on that front as well. But yeah, in the meantime, thank you very much for watching and listening. We'll catch you in a week's time.
Eccolo Ante in area di rigore, Ante, Ibra, gol! Vediamo se è buono, ce lo dà buono, ce lo dà buono, ce lo dà buono.